for my second pick, I am going with another one of these sweet spot teams, the Denver Broncos, 9.5-point underdogs at Kansas City. And this is pretty off-brand for me because I'm usually fading the Broncos and backing the Chiefs, in certain spots here and there. They're usually overvalued. But 9 to 10-point underdogs, first of all, just get it out of here right off the bat.
That is on brand.
Yeah, that is on brand. So tweeted about this, fired off a couple screenshots from the Action app the other night, Monday Night Football, because the Giants were also 9.5. I think they closed at 9 or 9.5. I forget, but in that sweet spot range. And since 2015, according to our Bet Labs database, 9 to 10-point underdogs, 42, 9, and 2 against the spread, 82.4%. Still a relatively small sample. Yes, we're truncating it at 2015. It's not quite as good if you go back further. Still profitable, but it's just one of those spots where it's number one, it's just tough for it's a tough cover when you have a team that's not like just a total, like sometimes you get these total mismatches like Ravens Jets where it's like, okay, it's 16 and you're probably expecting the favorite to win by at least 2 touchdowns. But that 9 to 10-point sweet spot means one team is better, but they're not quite significantly better to where it's a lock, and those spots are just tough to cover. And then
that's how I explain it to people too. People are like, well, why? It's random 9 to 10 to 11, right? Like, why don't you cut 14 to 6, 15 to 16? And when there are spreads that are over 17, that we look at that, we slice that up too. But I always say, and you said as well, it's very difficult to cover double digits in the NFL for various reasons. There's, it's a league with parity. Teams don't run up the score, right? Once they're up 10 or 14, then you're just going to sit on the ball. You just secure the win. You also a lot of times are playing competent quarterbacks. You can get in the back door against a prevent defense, and so that 9 to 11 sums up a lot of those while removing what you just said, a complete mismatch on paper where the line is 14, 16, 17, and you might not be playing a competent quarterback. You might not be able to get in the back door, and the spread. You might be down 21-24. You might have a backup quarterback in there. So, yeah, I think that's why it is the sweet spot.
Yeah, no, that was well said. And because I do want to point out that, like, I am not one of those people who just kind of blindly bets trends. I like when a trend kind of supports a pick I already like it, because that's kind of what we're doing in betting. We're trying to maximize our edge. So if there's a spot I already like for matchup reasons, on-field reasons, and then on top of that, history has kind of told us that, hey, be on the alert. These spots are where there's an edge. I like that. So, I would never blindly bet anything, just for the record. But this has been an amazing spot, one of the best spots for if you're a sharp bettor to kind of look out for, because I think if you're a casual bettor and you're kind of newer to the show or newer to betting, one thing we should point out is that casual bettors tend to pick favorites, and they tend to pick overs. And so those are usually overvalued. And as a result, you get more value more often than not on the underdog and the under. Now, that's not a blanket statement. There are spots where you like the opposite, but just generally speaking, you should be on the lookout for spreads just like this one. So back to the matchup at hand. Denver, listen, in this case, when you're getting 9.5 points, the variance and the unknown factor works in your favor. We don't know exactly if Drew Lock really truly is a competent quarterback. I mean, they beat the Houston Texans, whose defense is really bad now without J.J. Watt. And, of course, they traded Clowney to Seattle earlier in the year. So you can't really look at those 38 points they put up in that game and say, oh, my God, Drew Lock has arrived or anything like that. I think that Houston defense is surprisingly bad, and I know we'll talk about that in a little bit. But at the same time, they are 2-0 with Lock. They are covering the spread by an average of 14.8 points per game in those 2 games. And at the same time, their defense is pretty solid. They're 10th in weighted DVOA, which just weights the more recent games a little more heavily. So this is not a total mismatch or a total spot where, Kansas City just has – it's not like the Raiders, I guess I should say, because that was one of the spots where I backed KC and went against a 9 to 10 point, trend, and it actually worked out. So again, don't blind bet anything, but I like this spot for Denver. I think they could kind of hang in the game. And Drew Lock in that offense, Cortland Sutton's been balling. hope Noah Fant can go to the tight end, because I think that is that's going to be key to kind of exploiting that Spagnuolo defense that's been really good at funneling action, away from the perimeter and not getting beat on the outside or deep down the field. I think Fant would make a difference in this game, even though Denver is pretty deep at tight end behind him. I think he's the guy that makes a difference athletically. So looking out for that, but still like this spot for Denver regardless. I think they're just a tough team to beat, a tough team to pull away from. I mean, they also played Minnesota close, lost by only 4 with Brandon Allen. So like Minnesota to hang around. Excuse me. Let me say it again. So like Denver to hang around in this game at +9.5 in KC.
Yeah, I would see if anyone's out there listening, see if a 10 pops. But there's my dog trying to jump on me. I would see if a 10 pops, but at 9.5, yeah, I think that's the spot. I like the matchup. You bring up a great point. I feel like I say this going through every game, but Fant down the seam and his catching ability, if he can play, I think it will be an added boost to the Denver offense. But yeah, I think they can keep this close here. Do you have any intel on Mahomes? I mean, I know that he's going to play, but he's just dealing with nagging this and nagging that
all the time. All the time, it seems like it's been like all season he's been dealing with. And this is another reason why we're looking for these underdog spots, because there's always going to be regression to the mean, not just for no reason, but a lot of times you say it's just randomness, but it really is just, things like injury rates in themselves. You can't stay healthy forever. And sometimes you just it is a bit of luck where, it's kind of calculated luck where, hey, you might benefit from a guy like Patrick Mahomes banging his hand in the game, and that make it tough for them to cover. So I don't have any specific intel. I know he's just a little, the hand is not like, it's not 100%, but just like Lamar, he's going to be out there. Looks like Jameis Winston's going to be out there for the Bucks. So I think these are pretty much non-issues. Did an injury study for fantasy a couple of years ago where I looked at how players perform versus when they're on the injury report versus off in a given week. And quarterbacks was the only of the skill positions where it really had no effect. Essentially, if a quarterback's healthy enough to play in a game, it's usually not going to impact the bottom line stats. Like, it can impact them in a specific situation, obviously, as we've seen throughout the year with Mahomes. But as far as going into the game, I don't think it's giving Denver any added edge.